So as I just said, you're welcome to pop anything into the chat as we go along. Your camera and microphones will be disabled until the end of this presentation, at which point, if we have time, we'll open them up and we can have a chat. Otherwise, we can follow up directly with you. And just admitting people as we go along. And there'll be some messages and links popped into the chat as we go along. So welcome to the Arts and Creativity Grants information session for 2024-2025 round. My name is Paul Matthews. I'm an Arts and Cultural Development Officer here at Northern Beaches Council. And in your other window, you will see Amy Curl, who is the Arts and Cultural Development Coordinator, who is also my boss. So we are here to answer your questions, to hopefully help you along through this process. And I'll say this a number of times, but we're here to help you get a grant. This is our job. This is what we want to do. We want to see your project succeed. So this is what we're going to be working towards. Just making sure that everyone is admitted. Yeah, thanks, Amy. Okay, so hopefully you can all share my screen. If you can't see the presentation, please just pop a note in the chat and we'll see if anything else is happening. Otherwise, we'll kick along. So to start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands which I'm presenting from, and that you might be wherever you are joining us from. I'm here on Gamay land in Manly Cove. I'm based here at Manly Town Hall, where the water meets the land. And it's particularly pertinent talking about arts and culture here to acknowledge that the traditional custodians have the oldest continuing culture on this planet. And we thank them for the custodianship of the land, the waters, and music, dance, art, and for sharing their knowledges with us. So thank you. Okay, today, this afternoon, we will be looking at, we'll be starting by talking about your eligibility, who is available to get these grants, what funding is available that has changed this year from previous years. We'll be looking at the objectives. So that's how the objectives that you'll be asked to meet as part of your grant application. That ties into council strategies. We'll be looking at the assessment criteria, which then feeds into how to apply through the Smarter Grants platform, which you may or may not have used before. We'll also be looking at resources, what resources are available for you to use on a website and elsewhere. We're giving you some past recipients, examples of what projects have been successful in the past, might give you an indication of what we might be looking for, but also the types of things that you might want to consider as part of your project application. Finally, we'll end up with some key dates, and if we have time at the end, we'll open the floor to a Q&A. So to start, eligible applicants, we are looking for artists, creatives, small to medium arts creative organisations or businesses located in the Northern Beaches LGAs. Now, there are some exceptions to this, and to put this out there, we have this idea that everyone is creative. Everyone, that's my firm belief, everyone has creativity in them. So this is quite a broad definition. But, if you're not sure about if you classify under these categorizations, please get in contact with us and we'll be able to help work that through with you. The exceptions to this particular eligibility criteria is that you may be living outside of the LGA, but if your work has a tangible connection to the Northern Beaches or is specifically serving people within the Northern Beaches community, then that is still an eligible project. And again, if you're unsure, chat to us about it. We'll be able to give you some pretty clear guidance on that. We ask that you're over 18 years old, an Australian citizen or permanent resident, that you have no outstanding acquittals or debts owed to council. So that does include parking fines, it includes rates, it includes library fines, all those little small things that might be sitting there. Now, you do have up until the time that you submit your funding agreement and your invoice to be able to, if you are decided to be as a recipient, to reconcile any debts that you may have. So I would recommend doing it, however, before we get to that grant assessment period. It just helps once we do those eligibility checks just to make things go through much smoother. And also the final point is that you undertake to complete the proposed project between November 2024 and 31st of December 2025. So it's a calendar year that you'll have to complete your project within. And we'll talk more about those dates and why they're important a little later on. So ineligible applicants, state government organisations, political parties, particularly considering we're in an election year for local government, non-arts individuals, groups, businesses or organisations. Again, there are some exceptions to that within if you are, for example, someone has received a grant before that wasn't a specific arts organisation, however, it was a very specific arts and cultural project. And there was, money was going to artists, the activity was completely arts-based, all that sort of thing. So again, if you're unsure if you're eligible and that you still would like to apply, please talk to us. Large arts and creative organisations aren't eligible to apply. That wouldn't really be applicable across the Northern Beaches. A large arts organisation might be someone like Opera Australia or perhaps Belvoir Street Theatre, someone like that. None of those companies are really based.
Major performing arts, I think it's good.
Yeah, major performing arts.
You reckon? Major performing.
Yeah. So if you do find yourself in that basket, please again let us know. We'd love to know that there's some major performing arts in the Beaches, and we're happy to work with you in perhaps other many ways that we would like to be working with you. Okay, there are some general exclusions here. So the program does not fund projects that have already occurred. So there's no retrospective funding. So if your project, having said that, if, for example, there's a film project that we have funded in the past, the filming was already done. That part was already done. The bit that we funded and that was specifically applied for was post-production. So we funded a particular section of the project, not the whole project, but a very particular section. So be specific about that in your application. If it's sort of a long-term ongoing project and you just want to fund one part of it, let us know in the application. But if it's, for example, you're doing a theatre production and the theatre production has already been rehearsed, it's already been designed, it's been produced and it's happening in October, unfortunately that will miss the cutoff date and that won't be eligible. So we can't pay you for things that you have already spent money on. We can't fund projects that have already been funded by a Northern Beaches Council grant. So that might be something that if you've got a community development grant or a placemaking grant and you're wanting to get a bit of top-up funding, unfortunately we can't do that. That's what's referred to as double dipping. We can't pay operational expenses such as rent, ongoing staff wages, insurances, utilities, day-to-day general office supplies, things like that. So things that you'd be paying normally as part of your business. So say you're a music school, we wouldn't be paying the wages of your ongoing music tutors, or we wouldn't be paying extra stationery or stationery for the regular ongoing part of your business. However, if you have, and this is an example of something that happens, someone like Evergreen Music, they put on they're a music school, they put on a series of live music performances. We would pay for staff, or if it was a particular production staff, to produce that specific series of events. We would pay musicians to perform at those music events. And that might be someone who teaches on staff as well, but this is a separate income that we're paying specifically for that project. We can't pay built infrastructure proposals which require development consent. So the DA, the development application process, is a very long and a long process, and so we can't guarantee that that would get approved. So therefore, we can't guarantee that we can't fund a project that we're not sure is actually going to go ahead. We won't fund capital works, facility maintenance or improvements. So just basically consider anything to do with your building. If you have a building, that's not on the table, unfortunately. We also can't pay for travel or accommodation expenses. So that's if you are, say you're a band and you're wanting to go on tour and you're wanting to pay for the tour bus, or you're wanting just to pay for some flights, we can't cover that, or even hotel rooms, we can't cover that for you to go on tour. However, we might be able to help you, we might be able to help pay for, say, an agent to help you book, a booking agent or someone like that to help you set that up. We might be able to pay for you to develop promotional material. We might be able to help you pay for recording music that will help you get a tour booked. that kind of thing. So just be clever about the way that, how we might be able to support a particular project. And again, if you're unsure, get in contact with us. Our contact details, they're on the website and they'll be on a slide at the end of this presentation. Please note that we do not provide fee waivers. So if you're wanting to hire a council venue, we will provide the funds for you in the application. As part of your application, we will provide the funds for you to be able to pay for that venue hire. Rather than just sort of going, oh, no, we won't. Don't worry about paying for it. We've got you. I know it sounds silly, but the council is actually full of lots of different teams with lots of different budget lines. So it seems silly, but it's the way that money moves around and it all works that we have to work within. You can't submit the same project to 2 different council grants. So we are asking you to put all your eggs in one basket. However, so for example, you couldn't apply for the same project to us and to placemaking grants or to arts and creativity and community development. However, get in contact with us early. If you're not sure which grant stream you might be best suited to, we will help you. We will discuss that with the community development team or the placemaking team, and we will discuss your project and we'll go, where have they got the best chance? And we will tell you, we will nudge you towards that direction. The applications for each of those grant streams are slightly different. So get in early. If you've got an idea, you're all here at the opening of the grants. So just get in contact, send us an email, have a chat, and we'll try and help you out as best as we can. You also can't submit more than one application. So one application per applicant per grant stream. So if you've got two ideas, for the arts and creativity grants, it's just got to be one application. We won't fund one person for 2 separate projects. Again, our goal here is to spread the love, is to fund as many people, to make as many artists and creatives and producers be able to realize their projects as possible. So we'll only be funding one project per applicant. Great. Next, the funding that's available. Previously, there have been 3 categories. We have streamlined that down to 2, hopefully to make things simpler. Basically, there is independent projects up to $5,000 and community and creative sector projects up to $10,000. An example of the difference between those, an independent project might be an independent artist, visual artist wanting to put on an exhibition. It could also extend to a group of artists wanting to put on a group exhibition. Or even a band wanting to record an LP. So even though you're a group of people, you are still an independent entity. You're not connected to a community organization or a business. If you are a bigger community organization or a business that's wanting to put on a project, then you're eligible to apply up to $10,000. Basically, that is us drawing a line between the capacity of the entity, the group, the person, the organization, to be able to facilitate a project that will be warranted by the amount of funding that we're giving out. If you're unsure, if you go, oh, we're a pretty well-organized, coordinated artist collective, we've been operating for a number of years, this is what we'd consider an at-scale project, that, we're really after $8,000 to $9,000 to be able to facilitate this project, talk to us and we can work out if perhaps you actually might be suited to that community and creative sector projects criteria. So please get in contact with us early and just check where you might sit within that if you're unsure. There are some examples in our guidelines that you can access on our website that will indicate to you where you might sit. Now, objectives. So the 7 points that you'll see on your screen at the moment all come from the Arts and Creativity Strategy, which is called Connected Through Creativity 2029. And as this is a local government council grant, it aligns with our broader strategy, which aligns with council's even bigger, broader strategy. Amy, did you want to say something? No worries. So what we are asking to do within your application is to indicate which of these objectives your project aligns with. They're pretty broad, so it's very likely you'll find at least 1, if not 2 or 3 points, objectives here that your project aligns with. Just a note on that, in your application, if you're ticking every single box in that, the assessment panel is likely to believe that you haven't really thought through the true focus of what your project is. It's not a matter of the more boxes you tick, the more likely you are to get a grant. It's actually the better you articulate your alignment with 1 or 2 or 3 objectives that will make it a stronger application. I won't read through each of those points. They're on your screen. They're in the guidelines. And if you're unsure, again, please talk to us. We can help you talk through each of those. One that I will point out is number 2, connect with and celebrate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander heritage and cultures. If you do check that box, there will be a point in the application where you'll be asked to indicate how you're following cultural protocol, how you're consulting with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people on your particular project and how they are involved. My very strong encouragement and my firm advice is that if you are doing a project that connects with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, is that it is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander led, as in one of your key collaborators or the person applying is themselves an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person, or you have them as listed as a key collaborator, letter of support, and articulation of how they are involved. Just consider the phrase, nothing about without. So nothing about us without us. So that is a key thing that you should consider. And I would extend that as well to point number 7, if you are working with people with disability, culturally and linguistically diverse communities and LGBTQIA plus communities, that people from those communities are involved, if not the lead applicant on the project. That will really help us understand that you are very consultative in this project and it's thoroughly thought through. Okay, moving on to assessment criteria. So these assessment criteria, there are 4 major points, and then there are 1 or 2 sub-points underneath each of those. These assessment criteria form the basis of the application form itself. So there is a question that aligns with each one of these assessment criteria. And that is because after the applications roll in, we send all the applications to the assessment panel. They will give a score against each one of those 4 major points. They'll give a score out of 10 against rationale and impact, connection and development, experience and capacity, and viability. And then those scores will then shuffle all the applications into a ranking order. And what we do when we get into the assessment panel meeting is that we look at the top ones and work all our way down until we run out of money, which does happen. There is this whole category of people that it's the most awful phrase, but it's and I hate it when you receive it as a grant applicant, which both Amy and I have been, but it's called unfunded excellence, which is meaning that they liked the project, it was great, but it's excellent, it's just they ran out of money. And we do the same thing. Now, there is a little bit of shuffling around and people can fight for a particular application if they thought that, they disagree with each other, which happens, and we shuffle things around in that order. But that's what it comes to. So please pay attention to the assessment criteria, because you will be responding to and answering each of those criteria within your application. I'll very quickly note the next slide. In a couple of slides, we'll look to the questions that are in the application form, and we'll talk through that in more detail. A quick glance at Smarty Grants. Smarty Grants is the platform that we use for our funding applications. You may have used it if you're applied for one of our creative spaces, if you've signed up to Live and Local, which I highly recommend any musicians out there do. Talk to Amy about Live and Local. And a lot of Create New South Wales and a whole bunch of funding bodies use Smarty Grants. It is highly functional. It's really quite intuitive. We do acknowledge it's not pretty. It's not great to look at. It's not super clean layouts, but it works really well in many ways for us and hopefully for the applicants as well. Unfortunately, we can only submit an application through Smarty Grants, so we can't accept something in writing, we can't submit it on paper, that style of application. If you have any problems at all accessing Smarty Grants, navigating through its systems, get in touch and we can help out with that. We can jump on a video call like this and we can talk you through step by step how that works. You can preview the form before you go on. A hot tip is to, and what I'll often do and many other people do is they'll go into an application form, they'll copy all the questions, put them in a Word doc or a Google Doc or some kind of document in Dropbox or some kind of shared thing where you can edit it offline. Edit it in your own time. You can, if it's on Google Drive, you can share that document with people in your group. If you're applying as part of a group, you can all make comments and all that sort of stuff, and then copy and paste them back into Smarty Grants. A benefit of Smarty Grants is that when you first go in, you'll be asked to set up an account if you don't already have one. And what that enables you to do is to save your application as you go. It enables you to start the application, save it as a draft, and come back to it. I'll just recommend every once in a while, just go up top and hit that save button. It does sort of automatically save, but also just don't rely on it. So hit save every once in a while just to make sure that you're safe. This is also why we suggest putting it in another document and copying and pasting back across, particularly for those chunkier or more difficult questions. And talking about the questions, these are the key questions that you will find in the application form. And at the top, as I said, tip, it aligns with the assessment criteria. What we're trying to do is just make you respond, not make you, that seems like we're trying to force you to do something. But we're trying to encourage you to clearly articulate how you align with those assessment criteria, how you're fulfilling them, so it's easier for the assessment panel to see how wonderful your project is and how it all aligns. So it kicks off with basic eligibility and registration, who you are. Then it kicks into a very brief, and I underline very brief project description. It's only 60 words. And I know that people out there are like, that's not enough to talk about my project. And I also dislike having to whittle your description down to 60 words. But this is that little 60 phrase thing. Imagine you're in an elevator. This is the elevator pitch. You're in an elevator with a stranger and you've got 1 minute to sell them your project and sell it as strong and hard as you possibly can. That's what this is asking for. This is what the assessment panel will read. First up, they always look at the title, then they look at the project description, and that's what's going to win them over. That's what's going to capture their imagination and make them go, oh, I want to know more about this. I want to see how they're going to do this thing. It's a really interesting idea. And then the rest of the questions, that is where you're able to articulate how you're going to do it, what it means, why it's important, all that sort of stuff in more detail. So that first thing is 60 words. And Amy actually had a great tip in another session that we had. Use ChatGPT. Use the robots. They're actually quite good at it. So if you have you've written something and it's like a page long, put it in ChatGPT or something like that and go, please whittle this down to 60 words for me. And it'll punch out something for you. It might not be perfect, probably won't be perfect. But that'll give you something then to work with and go, oh, okay, I can see how I can say this in a much more efficient way, much punchier kind of way. So question 3 is listing the outputs of the project. So outputs are what you are doing, and that can be a simple list. It can be, I'm delivering 3 workshops. I am putting on an exhibition. I'm going to have a public program where we're going to, I'm going to teach watercolors. I'm going to record an album and it's going to be published online, and I'm going to do a live performance launch party. It's those things, just like really tangibly, what are you doing? What are your deliverables? What are you presenting out to the world? Then point 4 is rationale and impact. And this is where we kick into those assessment criteria questions. So why is a project valuable to the community, to the creative sector, and to you? It can be valuable to all those things. It can be valuable to 1 or 2 of those things. But why is this important? Why are you doing this right at this particular point in time? How is it going to benefit the community? How is it going to benefit you? Why is this worthwhile of funding? And there's guaranteed to be a reason, because if you've imagined it, if you're passionate about it, then there's a value to it. And this is just asking you to articulate that so you can win the assessment panel over. I point to myself, I'm not on the assessment panel, but you'd be able to win over the assessment panel with the value of it. It's not okay. Next is listing the outcomes of the project. So this is different to outputs. Outputs and outcomes are different. Outputs are what are you doing? Outcomes is the impact of what you are doing. So the outcomes might be, I am recording I'm recording an EP as an emerging band, and I'm going to do a launch party for that EP. And the impact of that is that will be a boost to my career. It will be able to me to launch myself and invite industry people to make connections and to benefit my band's future, or enable me to have a recording that I'm able to publish online to be able to broaden my my profile, something like that. Or it might be I'm running a series of workshops, and the benefit for people with disability with a particular, I'm collaborating with a very particular organization that works in that area. That's what I'm doing. The benefit of that is that I'm increasing access to the arts. I'm helping artists with disability to get an exhibition up at the end that will enable them to boost their profile, that will enable the community to have a greater understanding of their lived experience of that particular disability. And these are just some examples that I'm drawing from of projects that have been previously given grants. So those are the types of impact that you might be looking at. You'll be asked how you're going to measure those outcomes. And the reason we're asking you to articulate at this point how you'll measure them is because it's actually really important for you to consider that at the beginning, how you're going to measure the impact of your work. Now that might be, and the reason for that is because at the end, we'll ask you to write an acquittal, which is a report of how the project went. And those acquittals are really important for us and to be able to advocate for the arts and creativity grants, to advocate for arts and culture, to show to the elected officials, to show to other people in the council, to show to the broader community why this is so important and valuable to them as a community. That lets us continue to deliver these grants. So there's a bit of advocacy there. It's also really helpful for you as a practitioner, as a creative, as an artist, as a producer, to reflect on your projects, because you might go, oh, okay, so I've got this project. Did I succeed in my goals? Yes or no? Then you reflect on it. Why not? And that enables you to benefit next time. I know I have a background in theatre. Amy has a background in music. And it's actually really valuable at the end of a project to look at it and go, did that work? Why not? Make some lessons for next time to improve for next time. And it is actually really hard to make time to do that. So we're structuring that into the process for a number of reasons, but it is actually a very valuable thing. It's not just us asking you to do some paperwork for the sake of doing paperwork. None of us love extra paperwork. So this is actually a valuable thing for all of us. Now, I've written quantitative and qualitative up there. So the best way I've heard to describe quantitative and qualitative is quantitative is numbery, quantitative the quantity of something. So that might be ticket sales, clicks on a website, attendees at an event, that sort of thing, sales of a particular product. Qualitative is feely. So that's the impact. That's like feedback that you've gotten from participants. It's articles in media, reviews in the media, that sort of thing. So quantitative, numbery, qualitative, feely. Again, if you're not sure, shout out and we can give you a hand with that. And then you'll also be asked to show how you address the objectives. That's from a couple of slides ago. That's a really important thing to look at. You'll be asked to tick some boxes. Again, don't do all of them. Really focusing on the ones that your project is really angled towards. And you'll be asked to articulate how you address that objective. The next point, connection and development. So this might be for the community, the creative sector, and for yourself. So that is how you might be connecting yourself in with the industry. It might be how you're fostering partnerships and collaborations with people that you haven't done that with. It might be how you're improving and building upon existing collaborations and partnerships. Another really important part of that question will be how you're improving access to the arts for yourself, for the broader community. So that might be, for example, that you're running workshops and you're applying for the grant to be able to reduce the price of your tickets for workshops that you might usually run. What that does is it enables for people who might not normally be able to afford your workshops because it might normally be quite expensive because of materials or expertise or other reasons, the venue, that sort of thing. You'll be asked, so you might say, you know what, I'm going to apply so I can subsidize the tickets, which then lets people who can't afford it normally, particularly at the moment, that's really hard for arts and culture. People don't tend to prioritize that in their weekly budget. to be able to participate in the arts. It also might be about providing access to the communities that have traditionally been left out of the arts in some way, or haven't been given a lot of attention, or haven't been provided a particular profile or representation within the arts that they might not normally be able to get. So again, that connects with one of our objectives about people with disability, culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and LGBTQIA plus backgrounds, or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So those are ways that you can be providing access to the arts. So that's another key part of that connection and development. You might also be developing yourself as a practitioner. So you'll see in our past recipients slide in a little bit that there was an emerging musician who was given a grant to develop herself professionally, record a new single, publish that, and buy some equipment to be able to start to perform in live music venues. Which she's done, she's doing. She's part of the Creative Open program. We'll talk about her in a moment. She's wonderful. Experience and capacity. That is where you upload a CV. I would highly recommend uploading a CV because the assessors do look at that. And what they do, this whole section is about saying, does this person have the experience to do the thing they've said that they're going to do? Or do they and their collaborators, people that they're partnering with and working with, have the ability to do the thing that they say they're going to do? You might be extending yourself to a project that you've not done before, or to a level that you haven't done before. You might have had some experience in a particular area, but really wanting to take that step up. That's great. That's wonderful. That is completely valuable. But what we would say is that what we want to see is that you've got someone that you're working with that is supporting you, that is a mentor or something that is enabling you or helping you to step up in that level. So you're not sort of flying blind or flying solo, that there's evidence that you thought this through and you know how to get to where you want to be. So there's a couple other questions in another question there, just asking you to list those collaborators and you can provide CVs for them. It's also, that's the section where you'll be asked to provide support material. Support material, there's a space to upload files and provide links. It could be a link to a video, it could be a link to a social media profile or post specifically, to websites. You might upload material of images. It might be a PDF, it might be support letters from collaborators, from organisations that you're working with. A local member of parliament might be a letter of support, anyone else like that. That can all be really helpful support material. Again, this is to show that there's clear evidence that you've been working in this area. You know what you're doing and you know where you're going. Or again, if you're stepping up, that you've got the know-how to get where you want to be. Okay, points 7 and 8 both come under that fourth assessment criteria, which is viability. And again, this is showing that you know how to plan a project well and that you'll be able to actually achieve it. So the first point of that will be asking you to look at the budget. You'll be asked to outline your income, your expenditure, in-kind support, which is the in-kind's value, which is separate to actual monetary income and expenditure. And you'll be also asked to articulate what would happen in the instance of being awarded partial funding. I'll address each of those points separately. So income, we'll be asking about, so that will be this grant. You'll be asked how much you're applying for. It might also be ticket sales to a performance event. It could be money that you're contributing yourself, either as an individual or as a business. It might be funding that you've gotten from elsewhere, like state government funding, not Australia Council, Creative Australia funding, other government entities, private entities. It might be fundraising that you've done elsewhere. Any money that's coming in to support that project, put in that area. Then expenditure, we'll be asking you to basically list out and itemize. Doesn't have to be down to the micro granular detail of like, I'm going to be spending $5 on pens and $20 on paper, and not to that granular detail. It might just be like, I'm spending $500 on supplies for this materials for this particular thing. But it will be asking, like, if you've got venue hire, if you've paying people, we highly encourage you to pay people and pay them properly. There are links in the application form and in our resources as to where you can find pay rates from someone like NAVA. or MEAA. There's pay rates from those organisations. MEAA, if you're not sure, is the Media, Entertainment and Art Alliance. That's the union, essentially, for the creative industries. And we also encourage you to pay yourself. If you are an artist or if you are, someone working on this particular project, do pay yourself. We want to see people making an income out of this. In-kind is separate to that. So jump back a second. In-kind and expenditure, they must balance out. So there will be a field where it'll automatically calculate your budget and there'll be a balance, and that should be $0. So make sure your budget balances, and include everything that's a part of the project coming in and out, because what the assessment panel will do is go, right, do they actually have enough money to make this idea happen? Because if you just list, oh, I just want $4,000 from the grant, but the project is going to cost $9,000 overall. It's like you've got a venue, you've got a live music band, you've got catering, you've got all like you've got a flying circus going on overhead. I mean, that would be great. But if you've got all this stuff going on, that's going to cost $9,000, and we can't see where the other $5,000 is going to come from. It doesn't look like the project is viable. So include it all in there. Again, if you're not sure, shout out and we can help you, because we know that the budget can be the trickiest, most fiddly bit to navigate for a lot of people. And so you're certainly not alone. If you're looking at the budget going, I don't understand this, how is this supposed to work? You're fine. We all get it. It's very common. Now, in-kind support, that's the kind of support where you might have volunteers helping you out. You might have a photographer friend who's like, I will document that thing for you for free. That's where that goes. You might have a number of volunteers where you've got an exhibition, you've got people, friends that are like, no, we'll invigilate for you. We'll sit with the exhibition while it's on. Put that in there, because that's showing sort of the broader value of the project. How much support you've actually got from elsewhere, that indicates that. You might have someone who's donating equipment for you. So it might be like you're doing a live music performance and someone is donating for a day microphones, a PA system, a back row, that kind of thing. If someone is donating that for you, so it's not part of an income, it's not part of money going out, it's completely separate, that goes in-kind support, and put a value dollar to it, because that does help us to see how much this actually is worth, and that's great. That actually helps. The final point is partial funding. So partial funding it's quite possible. Most projects across most years of our grants do get awarded partial funding. It's not guaranteed. We do award the full funding that you request, and it will ask you how much of the project would, well, it asks you how much money you would need for the project to still be viable. So for example, say you've asked for $5,000, but you go, actually, I could do it with $4,000 and it'd still go ahead. Put that in there. It does not mean, and I promise you, it does not mean that we automatically go, great, they only get $4,000. Projects do get awarded their full funding. But what it does mean is that when we're looking around, we're going, oh, we're starting to run out of money. I wonder if we could make this 15th project happen by taking a little bit of money from that one, a little bit of money from that one, a little bit of money from that one. We can make another project happen and they'd all still be viable, and we spread the love as much as we can. It means that we will look to yours, and if you have said it's not viable with partial funding, we might go, and if it happens to be low on the rank, we might actually go, okay, actually, we're gonna forget that project and we're gonna give it to this other project instead. Yeah.
Can I just jump in on that as well? Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
The other point as well is that sometimes there are things that have been included in the budget that aren't necessarily eligible, or something like that might have come up. So if that means, that's gives us the opportunity to still fund the project based on taking that uneligible component out of it, then that's something we'll do. So yeah, just to Paul's point, if there is, it's worth putting in what the absolute baseline is for you to run the project, so that we can consider all options.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really important. The final few questions there that you'll be, the other part of viability is the project timeline. And again, that's spend a little bit of time on that. You don't have to go super granular. You don't have to give us exact specific dates. I think it actually does ask for dates, but you just can enter in roughly when things will be done. Excuse me for the project timeline is basically so we can see that you know how long it takes to make things happen. If you were saying, I'm going to put on an art exhibition and I'm going to put it on December 15th when it's going to take me 3 weeks to do the artworks, to get it all curated, to pull together all the information sheets and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to do a public program, and it's all going to take. Well, it's just going to take me 3 weeks. We probably won't believe that, to be fair. Same if you're like, I'm going to do a theatre production, and it's going to all happen in 1 month, and that's all it's going to take. Again, it's a little bit dubious whether that's a feasible timeline. But if you go, it's going to take me 2 months to pull together to do the initial writing of a script, and that's going to be continually develop. We'll have 3 months of part-time rehearsals because everyone's got full-time jobs, and so we're pulling them in from lots of different places. Then it's going to take another month to actually, and at some point within there's going to be a point where we develop the advertising material. So that's ready at least 2 months out from our final performances. We're going to start selling tickets 1 month out. Those kind of key milestones, put them in, and then that can really help us see that you know how to project manage a plan, and that essentially that the council, that public funds, because this is public funds that we're talking about, are in safe hands. That's why a lot of this detail is in there. The final points is asking about cultural protocol, which I've mentioned previously. So please do, if you are engaging with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural content, please really focus and spend some time on that particular field. If not, you won't be asked to address that field. That's fine. If you're not engaging in that area, that's perfectly okay. You won't be asked to comment on that question. Insurances, child protection certifications, and demographics and feedback. That's just a little bit of paperworky type stuff. Please do read them though and acknowledge them. You'll be asked for public liability or asked to indicate if you can provide public liability if it's relevant to your project. So again, if you have any questions about that stuff at the end, just shout out, we can help you through it. Okay, there are lots of resources available, not just from us, but also from a lot of other locations. So that URL up on the screen there, that will take you to our grants page, which will then, at the bottom of that page, there's a whole section called applicant resources. There are resources about cultural protocol, about sustainable projects, about working with people with disability, about sort of lots of different things. This video, once it's recorded, will go up there. Hello, if you're watching this video later on. That's a bit of a trippy time warp kind of concept. And we'll be uploading more resources as we go. As we come up with questions that people deliver to us, we'll actually pop them into the resources area just to keep things updated as we go. Grant Guru, that is not specifically for applying for grants, but that is a service paid for by the council, accessible to everyone in the community, which lists all sorts of other grants that might be available. So if you're like, oh, I can do this grant and that grant would help make my project even bigger, or if you are unfortunately unsuccessful in this particular grant round, we do encourage you to look at, there's plenty of other grants out there from many other organizations, governmental, private, and community-based organizations, and they're listed on Grant Guru. Granted is a fairly new resource that's out there. It's an Australian one, and it's got lots of grant writing tips. It's got a regular newsletter. It's got some great articles and resources there about how to do that as well. And if there's anything that you'd like, that you're like, oh, we'd love a resource on this, give us a shout and we'll try and hunt it down and provide it for you. So some examples of past recipients. I won't read through the list there on the right, but I'll just talk through some of the examples there on the left through images. So Christina Wilson on the top left, she's the emerging musician that I was talking about before. She's a wonderful singer-songwriter, lives and works in Northern Beaches, has been performing here in open mics for a period of time, and was just ready to record that single, have something to share with agents and with the industry, and enable her to share with people that she's trying to pitch to perform at live music venues. So she's done that. She's recorded the single. It's out there in the world. We heard it. Well, people in our team heard it, thought it was great. So she's now performing at the Manly Art Gallery and Museum as part of Creative Open Happy Hour, which is coming up soon in the last weekend of July. Head along. It's going to be wonderful, really exciting. There'll be a performance out there as well. So she's part of that now, and she's actually started to connect with other live music venues to start performing at. So that's a real success story. On the top right there is Kirsty. Kirsty Eager isn't in that project, but Kirsty Eager is a local author, has had a very successful career as an author, and she was taking that step into translating one of her books into film. She wants to develop into a feature film. We don't have, our budgets don't have the capacity to cover a full feature film. However, what she did is she applied for funding to help support a short film, which was a proof of concept to further develop into the feature film. So she was partnering with a local film producer. She brought on board local film crew. You can see them standing on Palm Beach there in that image. It was shot on location in Northern Beaches with young local actors were a part of it. So really drawing in the community. She did a screening at the Mona Vale Performing Arts Space. And that was a really sort of holistic project. So again, she looked at what was possible with the producer and went, great, I can get a short film produced with a bit of support from council, from the grants. And then she's, moving on now to the next steps of having done that. And again, she didn't apply for the full script writing and all this kind of stuff, just for the post-production bit is what she applied for. So that's what we provided support for. And again, that funds went to color graders and all sorts of other people that were important for that process. The image down the bottom, that is Susie Duro. She is a visual artist. Did this incredible exhibition of translating sound waves using a technology that I can't pronounce at this point in time, to translate it into an image, into imagery, which then she translated herself into these beautiful artworks, which you can see in the background of that image there. She used Curl Creative Space, so in her budget, she knew how much that was to hire. She had that in her budget. Worked with the local community to, as part of a public programming aspect. That was, again, so you can see her talking with people. So she was sharing her knowledge and skills with people in the Northern Beaches area through a public program. So that helped bolster her application. And it was great. It was a great outcome. So that was another success story. Okay, on to the key dates. So applications are already open. You can go in now. You can. We've already had one super keen bean who's already applied, which was great to see. And there's a few. I can see there's a bunch that have already started applications. I will say, we can't see your in-progress applications. There's a process through Smarter Grants that we can ask you for permission to see that. You can give us permission to see your application in progress. So if you have any questions about it, there is a process that we're able to jump in there. We can't edit for you, we can't submit for you, but we can actually go in and see it so we can talk to you about your application in progress. But as you're just working on it, we can't see it. So that's fine. It's all private to you until you have the option to make it visible to us if you so choose. So again, throughout the process, feel free to do that. Monday, 5th of August at 3 p.m. applications close. That is a hard deadline. So I thoroughly encourage you to use that weekend before. We make it a Monday, so you have the whole weekend before they close. I have been a last-minute submitter of applications many a time, so I acknowledge that will happen. We expect a lot of them will come in over that weekend, but please don't leave it to the last minute, because there's inevitably some kind of technological hiccup. There's something that goes wrong, whatever it might be. If you call us on the Friday or the week beforehand, we probably can help you. If you call us at 2 p.m. on that Monday, it's a bit harder for us to help you out. We'll do our darndest, but we can't promise anything. So get in touch with us if you've got any troubles meeting that particular deadline for any reason. Once the application's closed, it does take a while for us to process them. There is a bit of a process through council. Again, this is local government, so there's lots of checks and balances that we've got to go through. Through August through October, we're doing eligibility checks. That's checking if you meet all the eligibility criteria for your budget items and eligible budget items. There'll be the assessment panel gets to read through them. They do their scores against those assessment criteria. And then what that assessment panel does, they meet on a particular day, sort of later in August. They make a recommendation of their list. They'll give their top ranking order of who they think should get funding and how much they should get. That goes to a council meeting. That council meeting is on 15th of October. The elected officials at the time, who actually, to be honest, we don't know who they will be because there is an election coming up in August. So it may be a different elected officials, councillors to what we have now. They will vote if they approve those grants. And that goes across all our grant streams. If the council votes on those and agrees to them and approves of them, then we will start being able to notify recipients that they have received their grants. So that will happen sort of late October, early November. That will be able to notify you. Around that late October, early November period, we'll be sending out funding agreements. We'll be asking for invoices. We pay the grants in a lump sum. So we pay you the grant in full at one time. To enable us to do that, you'll sign a funding agreement, which will agree to sort of a whole bunch of things, which you essentially will have known through the application form. And then you'll be asked to provide us with an invoice as well. And then we'll pay that once we receive it, and we will check that it's all eligible. Then once you have signed that funding agreement and submitted the invoice, you are able to start spending money on your project. You are able to start delivering the project itself. So this is why we say don't plan to have a project in October this year. That is, the timing is just too tight to be able to trust that you'd be able to have funding in time to deliver the project. So consider really from November, December, and you've got all of 2025. You've got until the 31st of December next year to deliver your project. So if you're thinking for like a spring project, like an October, November project, August, October, November project, consider it for 2025. And that is a much more reliable that your project will be delivered safely and that funding will be valuable for that project. And then the final thing, those acquittals that I discussed earlier, that final report, that is due at the end of January 2026. So we are looking a long time ahead. It will sneak up on us. But for now, that's a long way ahead. Don't worry about the acquittals just yet. Let's focus on the applications. So we now have a little bit of time for Q&A. So I've just opened the chat here and there's nothing in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand or pop something in the chat. Melissa, we've said that we can't give people 2 grants, but we can, no, you can't, we won't accept 2 grant proposals for the same category. So again, it is that thing of putting all your eggs in one basket. And if you're unsure which project has a stronger chance, have a chat to us. Again, we can't guarantee that we'll go through.
We are talking with the other grants team. So that's if something comes up and you're saying that you want, it could fit into both, then we'll have a discussion internally and then be able to advise you on where you'll have being the most competitive.
Yeah, and just reading the second part to your question, yes, you can be involved in both a creativity grant project and an environmental grant project. They just have to be 2 separate projects. So you can't submit the same project to arts and creativity and environment because we will check against each other. We're all friends, we all talk, so we'll check that the same project hasn't been submitted twice. But for example, if you've got a live music event that you want to do through arts and creativity and there's a community garden project that you're wanting to do through for environmental grant, to 2 very separate projects, yes, you certainly can be involved in those and yeah, that'd be wonderful. I mean, definitely get involved. Okay, any other questions? You're welcome to put your hand up. And if you feel like chatting on camera, we can turn on your camera and a microphone. But if not, feel free to pop them into the chat. Yes. So Ross has asked, can you apply for funds to pay for marketing to publicise an exhibition in the Northern Beaches? Yes, you can. There is some marketing budget that is eligible. So marketing is an eligible cost to your project. Just consider the quantity of the grant itself that would be going towards marketing. So I think generally assessors would like to see more funding go towards people costs, venue costs, those kind of project costs versus marketing, but certainly it's eligible. And Ross, yeah, I've seen your hand go up, so I can allow your microphone and I can allow your camera as well if you'd like.
Thanks, Paul. I just have a quick question around the budget. You talked about how income and expenditure have to balance. How do you account for something like sales of works at an exhibition, which are very hard to predict? You know, they could be nothing, or you might sell everything. What's your advice on how to account for that?
Yeah, it's a tricky area. I mean, it's anywhere in the arts if we're budgeting based on ticket sales, how much we get back. There are certain percentages that certain people adhere to. So what we'd suggest, and Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but make an educated estimate of how much you would make through sales.
Yep.
And so part of the income and expenditure table, so as part of the expenditure table, you'll be asked to indicate which costs are set against which income. Mm-hmm. So, for example, to be safe, you might say, look, you want to pay yourself, maybe pay yourself. This feels a bit harsh to say, but maybe say, I'll pay myself out of the sales of artworks, right, but I will pay for the venue out of the arts and creativity grant.
Got it.
And so that indicates to the assessors that, yeah, the exhibition can go ahead and any sales that are made are a super bonus. That's great. But it's not relying on ticket sales or artwork sales to actually make the thing itself happen. Okay. So those kind of costs that are a little bit like, oh, I could take a bit less, or I could take a bit of a hit there and it'd still be okay.
Yep.
That's fine. I mean, there is also fields within the budget area and even at the very end of the application to make extra comments. So you might say, look, I have a caterer who's willing to charge me, you know, one amount if I make so many sales, and they'll charge an extra amount if I make even more sales. And it's a sliding scale. You can make a comment like that. You know, okay. There's lots of ways around that.
Excellent. Just one quick follow-up question, if I may. What's the situation where, for example, the lead sort of applicant is in the Northern Beaches, but there may be one or two collaborators who live in Sydney, but not actually in the LGA? Is that sort of acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, bring people in, bring them over our way. Cool. That's great. Yeah, collaborations and partnerships across the LGA, but much broader is great. Part of the aim of the arts and creativity strategy is to connect the Northern Beaches with the broader arts community. So that's a valuable thing to do.
Great. Thank you.
No worries. And Sash, I've seen that you've got yours hand up. I can allow your microphone. So hopefully you're able to speak now. You might need... Oh, yeah. Hi, Sash. Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. I was wondering, so I'm currently a student, and part of the project that I have in mind is tied to my body of work, but the community-based project that I have a vision for doesn't necessarily, like it's not like it would be separate to my body of work that I would submit, but it does like have ties to a tertiary like education institution, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's sort of like you have this body of work that you're developing as part of your studies, and you have a vision for a project that is not necessarily continuing in like isn't as part of that body of work, but is still within the same practice. Like it's still,
Yeah,
say if
it
you're a
links,
visual artist,
so
it
yeah.
links to it.
it-
Yeah.
that-
So you could use your body of work as support material.
okay.
You could use it to say, look, I am a practicing artist. This is an example of my work. This is an indication of my skill or my technique or the type of ability that I will bring to this project. However, I would be working in this way with these people to deliver a different body of work. But these are examples of my skill and ability and the fact that I can produce things.
Cool. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's across a lot of different disciplines.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. I'll just jump back into the chat. If there are no other questions, I'm just conscious it's gone 2 past 1 o'clock. So I'll just jump onto our final little slide here, which are the final things to remember. And what I will say before we finish up, if you have any other questions that come up just after we hang up on this call, that you're welcome to email us. The email address is up there. You're welcome to call that phone number. That is my direct phone number. So you'll hopefully catch me. If you don't catch me, leave a message or with the customer service that will probably take it, or send me an email and I'll follow up and we'll make a time to chat. I'm happy to chat one-on-one, happy to chat with a group of people, video call, phone call, in person, whatever you'd like. We can make that work. So this is not your last chance to ask questions. So things to remember: check the eligibility criteria and review which grant suits your project best. And if you're unsure, chat to us. Grants close at 3 p.m. Oh, that is the wrong date. That is the incorrect date. They close at 3 p.m. Monday, 5th of August. This is obviously didn't update that date from last year. I apologize. Monday, 5 August. Late submissions won't be accepted. Speak to us about your project early. We're here to support you. And spend time and submit a polished application, especially a clear budget. It is clear when applications have been rushed and people just throw in last minute thoughts into an application. So please do spend some time on it. It is clear, and it does actually bolster and strengthen your chances of getting funding. And again, spending some time on that budget, they can be fiddly, but they're worthwhile going through. And to be honest, once you've gone through this application, essentially you've developed a really strong business plan, which is what you kind of need to do to put on to realize a project anyway. So it's kind of taking you through all those steps of developing a business plan to put on a project of any particular scale. So that is it from us. Thank you so much for attending. It's been great to see so many people turn up. We look forward to chatting with you again in the future. We're here.
Yeah.
That's it. Amy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, thank you, Paul. That was great. I would just say that, yeah, please get in touch. Paul's on hand. He puts a lot of work into this and is on hand to give anyone a help, and likewise myself. But we're here for that purpose. So please use us as a resource, and we'll do our best to get everybody in a really good position to get that funding for creative projects. So have a great weekend, everyone. And thank you, Paul. That was wonderful.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Amy. All right. Chat to you all soon. Bye.
Bye.